those of you who don't know me, I am Afif, here from ProApp, and today's there's something special. To be honest, it's more about a mindset of a designer rather than a particular skill to learn. Because the thing is, some designers feel they should do as much as possible and convince a client or company uh, regarding how they are best for the job without actually listening to the problem they are wanting to solve or they need to solve. And what happens is, many a times, usually designers even fail to zoom out and actually see the impact that their creativity is having on any particular business, and understand what is their equity or their share into that. And being at a large company, your work can begin to feel a little mundane and pointless. You may feel like a cog in the wheel and doing the same thing every single day, and that's why developing a very entrepreneurial like mindset is very important as a designer. And that's why we have Raymond with us here today. A little bit about Raymond. His experience has seen delivered designs and code solutions across different industries, and he has been contributing to several products. And over the last 7 years, Raymond has worked with brands that serve millions of customers to startups looking to launch their first product. So also, like, when he's not pushing pixels, he enjoys teaching as well. And one of those opportunities is here right in front of us, and telling stories via YouTube as well. So all those will be shared with you shortly, but I think that's enough on my end. And Raymond, it's over to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Afif. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuned in. It's so exciting to see you all here. It's really amazing to be here. And just as Afif mentioned, I'm a product designer. I'm also very passionate about the design community. I am a speaker. I speak at conferences. I also mentor designers. And we are going to be talking about something that I feel like is very important, as Afif mentioned, which is having an entrepreneurship mindset as a designer. So without further ado, I think I'll just share my screen. While I'm doing that, do you guys, mind sharing where you guys are tuning in from? What country are you tuning in from? I see some people are from here in Nigeria, some people from India. So if you could just drop where you're from, I think it would be a good idea so that I can get, more perspective as to my demographics. So while you're doing that, I'm going to share my screen right now. So let's get started. So we're going to be talking about thinking like a designer and acting like an entrepreneur. So as I mentioned, my name is Raymond. I'm a product designer. I'm also a design instructor. This will be my first workshop session with ProApp. I have, I've had lots of mentorship sessions with ADP List, and I also do some mentorship sessions with Growth School, if you guys know Growth School. So these are organizations that I also teach with. I've also worked with brands like InVideo, like Andela. These are international companies, and I've helped them to, design some products, some really amazing products that are used by like thousands and millions of their customers. So it's really exciting to, talk to you all about this concept of entrepreneurship as a designer. So throughout this workshop session, I've kind of condensed the main ideas into three main topics that we're going to be dissecting. So we are going to be considering what makes a creative person more valuable, how to charge for design, and we're going to be considering the topic called value-based pricing. And then we'll also consider how to be a happy designer. And these topics are very important because whether you are starting out as a designer or you're an experienced person, the importance of knowing how you can be valuable to your team, how you can be valuable to your colleagues is very important, especially in this day and age. And as designers, we usually get projects both as a full-time, some of us work as freelancers, some of us might actually work as, independent persons, which is, of course, freelancers. But it's important for us to understand how we can charge for this design. What are the value that we bring to the table? And then we are going to be considering a lot of concepts as to what makes for a happy designer. I also shared the same concept with a design conference I attended last weekend, which was one of like the biggest design conference here in Nigeria. And I shared this concept with them, and a lot of people have reached out to me and like give me positive results. So I hope that this session is going to, have some beautiful impact to your life, and I can't wait to get feedback from you all. So let's get started. Now, I have this question that I usually ask, and the question is, why are some designers more valuable than others? What do you guys think? And to make this session interactive, I'd like you guys to drop some thoughts on the comments as to why you think some designers are more valuable than others. Do you think it's because of the design skill? Say they have this good attention to detail, or is it because you see them, they post a lot of concepts on social media, they post a lot of design tips? Is that what makes valuable designer? What do you guys think? You can drop some chats as to what you think makes for a valuable designer. Well, while we are brainstorming that, this is what I think. It's the ability to help others to find their meaning and purpose. I personally think that's what makes for a valuable designer. If you're a designer and you can easily help a company, help your colleague to be able to understand themselves better, for brands to be able to understand the problem they are solving, I think that's what makes for a valuable designer. Now, another question we might consider is, how do you help someone to know themselves, right? How do you help someone to identify themselves? How do you help someone to identify the real problem that they want to solve? And these concepts are very important because especially when you're starting out, you really want to know how you can help someone, help your colleague, help your company to actually understand themselves, to understand their purpose. Now, how do you do this? And the answer is very simple. It's by asking questions. Questions, they say, is the gateway into a person's heart. When you ask the right questions, it helps you to uncover challenges, problems, and even potential solutions that even you or even the client or your boss didn't even know actually existed in the first place. And so questions are very important. I don't know if any of you guys know Chris Do. Yeah, Chris Do is actually the founder of The Future. And in fact, for the last 2 years that I came in contact with him, some of the concepts that he has shared has really had like a huge impact with how I relate with clients, how I relate with colleagues. And he's actually the founder of The Future. And there's this quote that he says, your value is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. I want that to sink in for a second. Like the value, I'll say that in another way. The quality of the questions that you ask demonstrates your experience, demonstrates your expertise, demonstrates your knowledge as a designer or as a creative who is working in different disciplines. Now, let us consider what that means. There are different kinds of questions that we can actually ask our clients, our bosses, our line managers. And these kind of questions, I look at it in two categories. Some of them could be low value questions, and some of them could be high value questions. What we want to do is, in order to buttress our value to our clients, we want to ask them high value questions. And the mistake that I see that we creative make sometimes is we tend to ask low questions. Now, don't get me wrong, these questions I'm going to be sharing with you, they're actually important questions, but some of them takes more higher precedence than the other. And I'm sure for some of us, the low value questions are very familiar to us. So when we get on a client's call, or someone reaches out to you that you want to work on a project, what are the types of questions we ask? Most of us, we ask questions like this. What is the scope of this project? What is the time frame? Who is the target market? What is the budget? Now, these questions are important, but they are low value questions because these questions tend to just talk about the scope of the project, talks about the time, and just focus on the scope and the needs of the project, but it doesn't go on to actually ask the person personal questions as like high value questions. Now, what are the results of this kind of question? You start getting checklists, like you get your client start obsessing about the detail, like, okay, what color is the font going to be like? How big is the logo going to be like? We start getting these checklists. Now, have we actually derived any value from asking that question? No. We become an order taker. Oh, you have clients telling you, oh, we want this project to be delivered, say, by 5 p.m. next week, Friday. And you become a service provider. Now, this session, I want you guys to change your mind from being a service provider to being a partner, to being someone more like a friend to your client. Because when you're considered as a friend, a partner, your value appreciates. You don't want to consider yourself just as a service provider, but you want to bring value. And when you're able to bring value, you are considered as a partner. Now, let's see some high value questions that can help us to actually become a high value designer. Now, think about some of these questions. How did you come up with this idea? Now, when you ask your clients, he brings a project, and then your question is like, how did you come up with this idea? It helps your clients to dream. It takes the client back into when the idea was still in the ideation phase, when he was still concepting the idea. He gets to tell you how he came with the idea. Now you ask him, describe how this looks like in your mind. Now the person gets to dream, oh, I want a website redesign, and by the end of this redesign, I want us to have this amount of customer coming in. I want us to generate this amount of revenue. That way you get them to dream. These are high value questions. And they ask questions like, how will you judge if this is successful? Now, if you ask the client, how will you judge if this is successful? Of course, they get to look at some metrics that will help you to identify what the problem is and how you can solve that problem. And also, as you're asking this question as a designer, also put your mind in the heart of your entrepreneur. When you ask this kind of question, how do you think they're going to look at you? Are they going to look at you as some random designer or some random creative who is just out there? No, they are going to have this value. They are going to attach this value to you, that you actually care about them. Some of us have visited a therapist before. Now, what are some of the things that makes a therapist actually very important and very valuable? You'll agree with me that it's because of the quality of the questions that they ask. So when you have a therapy session with, say, a certified therapist, they ask you questions about you. And after the end of the session, what happens? You feel better. And you want to even go there because you want to continue feeling better. And over time, your life improves. And so when you're having this conversation with your clients, you want to, in quotes, be a therapist. You want to ask questions that are actually going to get them to dream. So that is why these high value questions are important. Now, can we go even higher than that? I like to look at the next set of questions as purpose-based questions. And they look something like this. Why is this important to you? Now, when you ask a client this question, why is this project important to you? They get to ask themselves this question, and then they get to give you answers. They get to give you answers that even they themselves, they have not even considered. Oh, I will feel better. It will mean I'm a better leader. It will help me, grow in my field as a creative director. As it will help our brand. It will push our brand out there, and we could potentially increase our revenue by, say, 50K over the next quarter, $50,000 over the next quarter. So these are some metrics that we can start jotting down. Now, why do you believe this to be true? And beyond money, why does your company or why does your brand exist? So these are purpose-based questions that actually brings your clients back to the core of why they needed to solve this problem in the first place. Because when business people start working on a problem, they get to forget why they even started it in the first place. They start getting geared towards the money part of it. So how can we make money? How can we please our stakeholders? How can we please our investors? But they start to forget the value or the real problem that they are solving for the real users. So when you ask these questions, it brings back the focus to why they really need to solve the problem, why the company existed in the first place. So these questions are very important. And here is why. Questions dig deeper into the core of the problem. Look at this illustration by the right-hand side. It's a well. It's popularly known as a well. In Nigeria here, we know it as Konga. And one of the good things about this is when you fetch water with it, when you put the bucket into this well, what happens? You bring water and you put it into another bucket and you go again. You keep going back and forth and bringing out the water out of the well. And that's exactly how questions is. Questions go deeper into your client's mind, into your line manager's mind, and actually digs out what the actual problem is. Now, for me personally, I like to look at problems or challenges or projects as an onions. Why? Because like onions, projects has different layers. And it's only when you ask these high value questions can you be able to peel into the several layers of the questions. You know why this is important? I'll tell you why. When clients reaches out to you, or when your boss reaches out to you and they want to solve a problem, usually what they are bringing to you are just symptoms. They tell you things like, oh, we feel like we want to redesign this particular website. Why? It could be maybe that's what's trending, like their competitors are doing the same thing. They're actually redesigning their websites, or they want to do something else entirely. These are symptoms. But then when you ask questions, you are able to identify the cause. And when you're able to identify the cause, what happened? You can now provide valuable solutions to them. This is very important. Now, when I have these conversations with designer or any creative in general, I like to ask them to consider this question to reflect on. And it says, in your line of work, whether you're a product designer, an illustrator, an animator, what type of questions can you ask to help understand what the real problem is? I like you guys to think about this question. Usually I ask people to generate about 5 different questions and actually ask questions that would actually dig into what the real problem is. Because when you're able to identify what the real problem is, you can provide meaningful solution to a problem. The point is, ask valuable questions. It will help you to become a high value designer. Now, I would like to share with you guys a story, and this is something that happened last year. Um, so I've been learning this concept of value-based pricing from Chris Do, who is the founder of The Future. And I got this call from someone. At the time, I didn't know he was actually a colleague. It was when we had a call that I knew that he was a past colleague. He was based in Kenya at the time. And he wanted me to do a website redesign. And I was like, this is actually cool. I mean, I can get to explore some of these high-value questions that I've learned from Chris Do. And so what happened? We got into the discovery call. I was able to identify some of the things that even he himself didn't know. At the time, we were able to identify that if we go ahead with the redesign, he could potentially generate an additional $5,000 in net profit every single month. And what that estimates is by the end of the first year, he could potentially increase his revenue by $60,000. He himself has not looked at it in that light. But when I was able to ask him these questions, we're able to identify what the real value of this redesign will cost. And then I was able to, put a price tag to that. And at the time, I was not even able to charge much. Like it was as if I've reached my ceiling in terms of how I was able to price for a project. But then look at this. I was able to charge him somewhere around this bulk figure for that redesign. And prior to that, I could not even charge up to $1,000. But then I was able to bill him this, and he was excited to pay this money at the time. And I sent it to him. His team was excited, and they were ready to go further with the project. And me, I was so excited. But the sad thing is that we didn't actually continue with the project. And it's not because of them, it's because of their investors. So some of their investors actually pulled out, and we could not continue with the project at the time. But it was actually a cool thing for me to actually see that when I'm able to ask these simple high value questions, it can increase my rates, my value. It can increase how much I'm able to charge. And people will be excited to actually pay me that. Now, this is a place that I want each and every one of us to be, because sometimes it's hard for us to see ourselves charging even higher than this. This fees, of course, about a year ago, obviously I wouldn't charge this as I right now, but then it was actually fun for me to, explore how I could improve my value as a designer and potentially even charge more. And he was excited about it. Now, the story doesn't actually end there. During the workshop session, I will actually conclude with the story, and something exciting actually happened recently with this same guy. But let's continue. Now, let's consider a very important topic, and it is how to charge for design. How to charge for design. Now, I don't know if there's any one of us that have heard the concept called value-based pricing before. So value-based pricing is this idea that you charge not for your time, not for your scope, for the scope of the project, but for the value that you bring to the table. Now, during the last conference, I actually shared this logo with the over 2,000 people that attended it. And I asked, what logo is this? They said it's the Apple logo, obviously. And then I asked, what is this logo worth? Like, how, if you were to place a price tag on this logo, how much do you think this logo is worth? Clearly, this logo is worth obviously $1 billion, right? I mean, the company that owns this logo, which is Apple, they would literally pay you $1 billion to come up with this logo. Now, why is it that some designers can charge 1x, another designer can charge 10x, then another designer can still charge 100x for this particular logo? I want each of us who are listening to this call to actually contemplate on that. Do you think it's because of the time it took the designer to come up with this logo? Or do you think it's because of this mark? Heck, I could argue that if this was a banana or if this was any other fruit, it will still worth the same thing. So clearly, it's not because of the time, it's not because of the scope, it's not because of the skills, but then it's because of the value to the client. It's because of the value to the client. And this is the mindset shift. You want to price the client and not the job. You want to price the client and not the time it will take you to accomplish the job. Now, this is just the real meat here, and it is stop charging for your time and start charging for value. And that's it. That's like the whole idea of the value-based pricing I'm talking about. When you're able to understand this on the subconscious level, you begin to charge even more. You begin to 3x your income. You begin to 10x your income. You begin to charge way more than you actually think it's actually possible. When you're able to understand that you charge not for your time, but for the value that you bring to the table. Now, when you're coming into this kind of conversation, I want everyone here to be a salesperson. And I'm not talking about the sales because there's this negative connotation people have when they hear sales. It's like the 5 seconds ad you see before YouTube or those salesy people you see on LinkedIn. No, when I'm talking of sales, I'm talking about this acronym. When you're having a conversation with a client, you want to come from a place of service. You want to come with the intention of actually providing real value. You want to serve them. And how do you want to do this? You want to ask questions. Remember the questions we asked in the past? High value questions. You want to ask these thoughtful questions. You don't want to jump into start labeling your price. Oh, my hourly rate is this, and this. No. You want to ask them questions. And when they respond to you, what do you want to do? You want to listen to them. And when you are listening to them, you want to empathize with them. You want to put yourself in your client's shoe, right? You want to understand their pain points. You want to understand what they're trying to solve. And when they finish giving you all of these problem keys or all these features that they want you to deliver, you summarize it to them to be sure that you actually got the problem right. And then you can recommend solution for them. So when you think of a designer, a sales designer, I want you to have this acronym at the back of your mind that you want to serve, you want to ask questions, you want to listen, you want to empathize, and you want to summarize. Now, how do we have this value conversation? Now, there are 2 formulas for pricing that I would like to share with you guys. One is popularly used, and the second one is a new approach, and it's famously taught by Chris Do, and I don't claim any credit for coming up with that formula. The first formula is this. When a client reaches out to us for a project, how do we price our work? Some of us, we just have our rates. Maybe our rate is $20 per hour or $50 per hour. What do? We just times the time that it will take us. If it's 100 hours, so $20 times maybe 100 hours or $200. And then we get the scope of the project. And this is how we come up with the price. This is how we price a project typically. Now, this is the common approach. I didn't want to say it's the wrong approach because clearly you're actually making money out of it. So clearly you're not in the wrong, but this is the common approach, but it's not the right approach. Now let's look at the value-based approach. It's the idea that before you come up with a price, what you want to do is you want to come up with the desired future states. Now, how do you come up with these desired future states? Remember the questions I asked initially. You want to ask the client questions like, what does success looks like to you? Or what's the worst that could happen? That way you get to understand the value. Oh, the client can tell you, oh, when we design this project, it will help us to get 5,000 new customers into our system, into our database. We have a traffic of about 5,000 people. Fine, this is a desired state. Now you want to identify the success metric, and not just any success metric, like just random things that are not quantifiable. So things that actually hold real value. Oh, you say you want 5,000 new customers. What is the value of one customer? The person can tell you the value of a customer is, say, I don't know, $1,000. Okay, $1,000 is ridiculous. Come on. Say the value of a customer is, let's say, $100. Fine, you've gotten that new customer, one person values at $100. Now, if you're going to get them 5,000 new customer, 100 times 5,000, and then you get your money, you get how much that is going to worth your clients, and then you've arrived at value. You know that this project that you're actually going to be working on is worth probably over $500,000 or up to even $5 million, and then you can come up with your price. Why? Because you've been able to achieve what the price, what the value is to the client. If it's worth 500K, clearly you definitely have to charge something that is actually tangible. You're not going to charge just $100 for a project like that, or you have to charge thousands of dollars. Now, this is how you charge for value. Now, the real value comes when you can get the client to name their own price. And the only way you can get the client to name their own price is by asking these questions and trying to understand what the value is. This can help you to understand what the true value of your creative endeavor really is to the clients. Now, there are three people that I usually encourage that you have these conversations with. And it's that when you're having this conversation, you want it to be with the entrepreneur, someone who is obviously a business person. You want it to be with a stakeholder, right? You want it to be with anyone who has a skin in the business. You know why? The reason is this. As designers, we understand the language of design, right? We understand, design thinking, color theory, and all of that fun stuff. But we don't understand the language of business. And that is why when you're able to understand the concept of value-based pricing, and you're then able to relate this with a fellow entrepreneur, someone who is business friendly, someone who understands business, you understand the true value of what your creative work is. And that's why it's very important to know the people that you're having this value-based conversation. Because say you've actually determined that your creative endeavor is going to make this company $5 million, say within the first year. You know that, oh, fine, within the first year, they'll gain an additional revenue of $5 million, right? And then you are telling the person that how much do you think is fair to charge against $5 million? Clearly, the person will want to charge something reasonable. If the person tells you he will pay you 10% of that, obviously that's over, if my math is correct, that's over 500K. And heck, if someone is paying you 500K for, say, a logo design or say website redesign or for product design or whatever, heck, with 500K, you could actually hire people who would give you like the best solution. So when they're able to understand that the value you are bringing is worth this much, and so they should be able to pay a fair amount, they understand it better. And that's why these three categories of people are very important when you are having this value-based conversation with. Now, there is this dude here, his name is Blair Ernst. And he says, when we stop pricing our time and input and start charging for the value we create for our clients, everybody wins. It's a win-win for both the clients and for you, the creative. And then there's this book that I think is really, really important. It's titled Pricing Creativity, A Guide to Profits Beyond the Billable Hours. And he also wrote this book called The Winning Without Pitching Manifesto. So if you want, you can screenshot this slide. And this book, if you read it, it's clearly going to change the way you start billing for clients. And I think this is very important, especially when you're starting out, because you want to know your worth and you want to be able to charge the real value for your work. Because as creative, we get excited because of design, and then we don't understand that we can actually charge more than we actually think is possible. So when you're able to understand the real value that you're bringing to your business, you're definitely going to be able to charge more, and you'll feel more happier as a creative, as a designer. So now, I don't know if some of you have any questions, because I understand that we have covered a whole lot of concepts, some of which might be new to you. Are there any questions that we want to answer? If there are any questions, you can drop it in the slide. I don't know, I will give like 30 seconds. If you have any question, you can just quickly drop it before I go on. Afif, I don't know if there are any questions.
No, Raymond, there are none as of now. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that means everyone is actually understanding the concept so far, so which is actually amazing. So, all right, we can then go ahead. Now, how do you stay happy as a designer? Because there's this popular trend now, if you work late, there's this thing that happens where creative works so hard, and then 3 months, 6 months, you start having what they call creative burnouts. Some people will tell you that they can't come up with new ideas again. It feels like they have reached the ceiling, they are stuck. Now, how can you stay happy as a designer? I'll be sharing two main ideas for us to consider. Now, let me start by asking this question. It is, what is the two most powerful yet unused letter that some of us fear to use? Obviously, it's saying no. As designers, as creative in our different disciplines, we dread to say no. And I get it, to be honest, I really do. Heck, we have bills to pay. So when a project comes our way, and probably we've not gotten a project, say in the last 3 months, 6 months, we are, usually tempted to say yes. But what we want to do is we want to get out of that mindset that we have to say yes to every project, because there are some project that comes along and they just underbid you. And if you end up saying yes, what happens? You start feeling sad. You'll start, giving you different scopes of project that was not even discussed in your discovery call. You start getting scope creeps. You start getting burnt out. And usually, in my opinion, why I think burnout actually happens is when you are not able to charge enough for the project, and when you are not able to delegate tasks properly, and when you are not able to, set priorities well. When you overestimate how long it will take, obviously you want to try to meet deadline, and then you start getting burnout and all of that stuff. So you want to learn to say no, like as much as you can, especially as a designer. When they bring like a scope creep, something that is not in the project brief, try to bring them back that, hey, remember our discovery call, remember some of the business goal that we outlined, this is not there. If we should add this, I'll potentially have to charge you more. Learn to say no. That way you feel more happy. And there's this concept, this economics concept called opportunity cost. And it's the idea that when you say yes to something, you are saying no to, say, an infinite amount of possibilities that can happen. So it is important that when you are collecting projects, or you want to start any endeavor, you want to know how you're prioritizing your time. Time management is really key, especially in this area. You want to know how you're prioritizing things that are important, so that you can, stay happy and stay more productive. And most importantly, stay creative. Now, there's this quote from Navarro Rafikant. He's very popular on Twitter and as well as other social media platforms. He says, "He that cares less about a job wins the most." And that's very important. If you are negotiating with your client, say for a full-time role, and then you are coming from a place of desperation, guess what? Business people and your clients can actually sense it. When you're coming and you're acting all desperate, they will sense it. And what happens? They'll try to, rip you off as much as they can, except for those who have good morals, and then they'll give you what you're truly worth. So when you come to a discovery call or to an interview, having in mind that prior to that, you never had the job, so you care less about it, you tend to look more attractive, and you tend to actually make more out of it. That's what, to me, this quote means. Now, remember the story I was talking about before? It turns out that last month, this guy actually reached out to me again. And guess what happened? He actually went for a conference somewhere in Europe, like a founders meetup or something. And he met another founder, a co-founder who is building something really cool. And that founder was like, "Yo, I have a friend," and this was the message that the guy sent to me. He was like, "Hey man, it's been a minute. I have a friend looking for a UI UX designer, and he asked me for the best I know, regardless of their price. And I want to know if you're open to make an intro." So this was the guy reaching out to me and telling me that his friend who he met in Europe wanted a designer, and he thought about me. Now, if I hadn't placed myself as a valuable designer about a year ago when he first reached out to me, do you think that a year later he would reach out to me for a project like this? No. And guess what? I actually hopped on the call with this person, and it's actually a cool project that I'm working on. And we were able to, in fact, back then I was able to charge them 3K, but this project, for transparency, I was able to charge over 8K for this project, $8,000 for this particular project, which is just like 10x almost 10x what I was able to charge back in the day. So when you're able to, deliver value, people are going to remember you. The law of reciprocity, people would definitely want to appreciate you. So if you're not able to do a project for people in the past, which clearly I was not able to do it for him in the past, he was able to, refer me to someone who right now I'm able to even charge more than that. So when you place yourself as a consultant, as a partner, as a valuable designer, your clients are definitely going to remember you. If I had charged him probably $100 back in the day, he would have obviously underlooked me like, yo, this person is just a random designer and he doesn't charge enough for his work. So possibly he's not even going to be a right fit for this particular role. But then I was able to, put my value there and he was able to give me good referral. So that's something that I want each of us to take into consideration. Now, I want us to talk about system because when I have these conversations with designers, they usually be like, this thing you're saying, it makes sense, but then how do I have this conversation with my clients? Is this actually possible? All of these just sound cliche. Now, I'm not talking about design system. I'm talking about our belief system. Now, we all know what belief system is, right? It's a set of principles a person has about what is right and what is wrong. Now, I want you guys to look at the next set of expression. And when you're looking at it, some of you might feel somewhat offended because you might look at it and say, this is unfair to women. And some of you might read it and you'll be like, this is unfair to men. Now let's look at the sentence. And I want you guys to read it. Now, some of us read it like this. The answer to that question, first of all, woman without her man is nothing. It actually depends on where we place the comma. So your answer depends on the lens in which you read the question. Now let's try that same sentence by applying that comma right in front of the man. Let's read it. Woman without her man is nothing. Now this is how most of us read it. Now when we add the comma in front of the woman, it changes. Woman. Without her, man is nothing. So our belief system has a major role as to how we actually think, what we believe is possible, and what we believe is our reality. Let me share another example. Now, when we look at this screen, what do we see on the screen? Well, some of us might look at it as half full. Some of us might look at it as half empty. All these are all subjective. Would I also be wrong if I said it's just a glass of water? So our belief system gets to determine how we view the world, how we understand what is possible. Can we actually charge 3x what we are currently charging right now? It's our belief system that can actually determine what is real and what isn't real. Now, we all have different inputs. Say we get a job rejection. How do you interpret it? Are you sad? Are you hot? Do you feel excited? Or do you feel happy? I personally choose to be happy. If I get a job rejection, what happens? It's a no. I look at it as next opportunity, N-O, next opportunity. I feel inspired to actually put myself out there. So when we get to change what we believe, it would have a major impact on our account balance and our personality as a creative, as a designer, and the way we look at what is real. So yeah. Now, what is the summary about what we've been talking about so far? We've learned the importance of, we've learned how we can actually be more valuable. We've learned that in order to be a valuable person, we need to have the ability to help others to find their meaning and their purpose. We've also considered a concept called value-based pricing. And it's just the simple idea that you charge not for the work you do, but for the value your work brings to the table. And we've also learned that in order to stay happy as a designer, you need to learn to say no to projects that you don't feel comfortable doing. And we've also learned that we need to change our belief system as to what's real and what is not real. So I'd like to leave this these quotes or these tweets from Stephen. And it says, stop telling yourself you're not qualified, not worthy, or not experienced enough. Growth happens when you start doing things you are not qualified to do. So what are those things that you are telling yourself that, oh, I'm not qualified to apply for this job? Oh, they're asking for someone who has 2 years of experience and I'm just starting out. Growth happens when you start doing things that you're not qualified to do. So I want you guys to think, reflect on this. And I believe your life is going to basically change from here moving forward. So that's it, guys. That's the little I wanted to share on this workshop session. And I hope it was impactful to each and every one of us. And yeah, that's it. And if you want to connect with me, you can connect on this my social media handle. It's simply Raymond Akalonu. On Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And yeah, as Afif mentioned earlier, I also tell stories on YouTube, and this is my YouTube channel. So I launched it earlier this year, and I'm still growing it. So if any of the things I've said so far interests you and you want to find out more, I talk about tech, I talk about growth, I talk about lifestyle, and I'm looking to release a course. It's titled Web3 for Designers. So if the Web3 and the metaverse interests you, you might want to consider subscribing to my channel. So yeah, that's the little I have for you guys. Thanks so much for having me. Do you guys have any questions that you might want to ask based on what we've discussed so far?
Yes, Raymond, first of all,
Okay.
thanks a lot for the session. I think it was really important to, understand the business side of things and the impact that any design or a designer has or on a business or on organization. So I think that was really great to know for someone who's just starting off. I think before we head on towards the questions from the audience, we can just take a couple of them ourselves. I think you can stop sharing your screen as well. We can have a quick chat. Yeah. So one question I had personally is uh, about having a say in any project or any task that you take up, considering later that you have to evaluate your impact on the whole job or the whole organization. So when do you actually take up this conversation? Is it should this be very clear while you are accepting the job, while you are giving out an interview, that these are my basic expectations from you as an employer, or should this be somewhere down the line?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question, Afif. And I think it's a very important one. So when you are having this value-based conversation, you want to have it early on, as soon as possible. I usually recommend have that conversation as soon as possible, because what that does is you start to understand what the real problem is, and then you're able to know if you're actually a good fit. Because there are some problems that some say clients might bring to you, and that you might not actually be the best fit to do, and that's fine. That's why you're a problem solver. You can actually propose to solve those problems. You say you're a product designer, and the problem they're bringing to you requires that you you bring maybe an illustrator or a content writer. Hey, you can get the project, and then you can hire people to do it. You're a problem solver. So it's important for you to ask those questions so that you can understand what the real problem is, and you can actually provide the real value to the client. So as early as possible, you want to start giving value to the clients. And one other thing I need to mention is the client or your employer needs to understand the value, not you. You as the creative actually understand the value. So what you want to do is you want to bring the value to the client. You want to help them understand the value you are bringing. I mean, think about it. If I should ask you, Afif, like, pay me $10,000, like I just randomly told you, like, you pay me $10,000. I mean, what would be your first reaction? You're like, heck, for what? No, I can't give you that. But then when you're able to describe the value that, oh, you're able to explain that if you give me $10,000, I'm going to give you $100,000. Now you have a better context, right? And that is why it is very important that you have this value-based discussion with your clients upfront before going along with them, because they have a better idea about it.
Got it. But I think that leads me also to another question, which is uh, that also makes us wonder as to what stage of your career do you actually take up such responsibilities or such kind of conversations. Because sometimes, let's say someone who's just starting off, it can be a little overwhelming, right, for them to think about so many things, or just to zoom out a little and understand
Mhm.
the whole business's point of view and the impact that they're going to have. Don't you think it gets a little overwhelming for someone who's just starting off?
Yes, and I think you have a point there, especially when you're starting out. You want to try as much as possible to, learn the design concepts. But why I think this discussion is actually important early on in your career, like you need to have this mindset, is because it places you in a better position. Like, I mean, think of it this way: you are a new designer, you know nothing about design, and then what is the first way, like, most of us get a design project? Most of us, we get it through maybe referral. Maybe someone has like a random project, like maybe a friend or a colleague, he sent it to us, And then this is how we usually get started in our product design space. At least personally, that was how I got started. And so when you do your first project, you do your second project, you start seeing the real value that you are bringing to the table. Now, why this session is very important is because you need to understand that as a designer, you need to understand the value you are bringing to the business. And starting out, it is important for you to understand that, yes, this value, this creative endeavor that I'm engaging in will generate this person X amount. And so I need to come up with this business mind because, heck, you are a creative. You also need to be an entrepreneur. You need to also, you have bills to pay, right? So even if you're starting out, it's important that you also know the value you are bringing to the table. And then you can start trying it out, as you get more project, as you get more client, as you get more gigs, basically. So, and this concept is usually quite hard for people to, especially when starting out, the idea of value-based pricing and value-based discussion. But then that's why it's important for us to start now to have this conversation so that over time you learn, you improve, and you become a better person, a valuable person, basically.
Got it. All right. So we have some questions from the audience as well. Harsh asks that, how do you become a great thinker?
How do you become, sorry, can you say that again?
How do you become good at creative thinking?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Sorry, who did you say asked that?
That's Harsh.
Okay, Harsh, thanks so much for asking that question. Well, I think it's actually subjective, but then if you must be a creative thinker, it means you have to diversify. So there's this thing called the T-shaped designer. It's the idea that diversify. So when you are starting out, if you want to be a creative thinker, you want to start exploring things as much as possible. So from the design space, you can also explore things into philosophy. So you want to, explore different fields so that when a project comes to you, you're able to, bring different ideas from different fields and use it to actually solve problem creatively. Because I mean, the best innovations comes from people who have come from different domain. Heck, the founder of Apple, he went into typography class. He went to different classes when he got started with. So if you're asking that question as a new designer, what you want to do is you want to put your hand into so many things in the design space, because what that helps you to do is when you are solving problem, you're able to bring this different knowledge you grab from different things and then apply it to solve a creative problem, basically. So that's basically how I think you can become a creative thinker. Explore different domains, it gives you lots of ideas, and then you can apply it into whatever it is you're solving.
Right.
Hope I was able to answer your question, Hash.
Yeah, I think I got an idea of that.
Also,
So moving on to the next question, Abhinav has a couple of them, and he asks, before we head on to the actual question, can you please share the name of the books that you previously displayed?
okay, so the first one is, I don't okay, I think I will just I'll share my slide. It's The Win Without Pitching Manifesto and Pricing Creativity. Let me quickly share my screen so you can take a screenshot of it. So it's this book and this book, The Win Without Pitching Manifesto. And it's written by this guy, Blair Enns. So yeah, I think it's a very valuable book that each and every one of us need to get, no matter if you are new, if you are a mid-level designer or you are a pro. Everyone needs to read this book because we get to understand the real value of our creative work. So yeah, I hope you're able to write it or screenshot this.
Perfect. All right. So moving on, Abhinav's question is that, should a designer look for value system alignment with its future client or organization before taking a job or a project? I think that is similar to what I did ask.
Yeah. It's similar with the first question you asked. So as I mentioned before, you want to have this value conversation as early as possible. Try to have this value conversation because, as I mentioned, you don't have to tell yourself the value. You know the value you are bringing to the table. What you want to do is you want to help the clients understand the value that you are bringing to the table, because when they do, you're able to create more context. Like the example I use, I can't just ask you to give me $10,000. There needs to be some context around it. So you need to have these value conversations as early as possible. Same in your discovery call, basically.
Right. All right. So, okay. Okay. Sarita has a question. She asked that some startup companies don't prefer research and they directly jump to solutions. So they directly want to jump into solutions. So how does that work?
Yeah, some clients want to, well, clients that, so I think that brings us back to what we addressed before, which is the high value questions. So when you see that a client just wants to jump at a solution, like it means they are taking a whole lot of risk, because you as an expert in your field, what you want to do is you want to understand what is the best case scenario that could happen, what is the worst case scenario, because then you are able to understand the value you are bringing to the table and how important it is to them. But then in cases where they just want to jump into the solution, it's not like the best. I wouldn't want to work with clients who just want to work at at this solution just right off the bat, because of course clearly we have to conduct research. What is it you are trying to solve? What does it mean to you? How would you define if this is successful? Because if you can't define the goals that you are looking to achieve, how are you going to define like when we are hitting them? So you want to hit, say, 3,000 new customer within the first quarter. How do we get to decide that? So these are questions that you need to ask them before actually going into coming up with solutions and all of that. You can go into the scope of the project, how long it's going to take later on, but then you want to come up with clear business goals first. Because what that does, sorry, I'm going a little further, because when you're able to identify like the business goal, when they start telling you things like, oh, I don't like this color, because I mean, colors are, subjective, they're relative. When they tell you, I don't like this color, I want the logo to be bigger, you can then shoot them back to the question like, oh, is this going to help us to increase, say, the customer that is going to come into our platform? You start drawing them back into the business goals that you guys have established at the beginning. So there's lots of importance when it comes to having that value-based conversations earlier on, as soon as possible.
Right. Uh, okay. So Nikhil has a question. It is more
Mhm.
towards the freelance side of things. So he asked that after receiving any completion and any payments of any UI or UX design project, uh, it different several times what happens is they ask you to connect with the developer to make that design happen, and just hand it off to the developer. So should you charge it differently for them to actually allocate your time to explain the developer and handing it off to them, or should you be just humble enough to take it up within the scope that was discussed earlier?
Well, this is why it is very important for you to have all these discussions earlier on. If you're working in a company, a big company, say an enterprise company, usually they have what is called PMs, product managers. And these people, as designers, we have conversations with these product managers, and then we also have these conversations with software engineers. So when you are having this design, let's say you are doing a product design or UX design, you want to also be interfacing with the designers. For me, it's usually an iterative process. So we have a 2-week sprint and we come up with this. We want the designers to, the developers to actually pay attention to detail. So it just depends on what you and your clients talks about. Some clients will just want you to just do the design and then just go out of it. So yeah, if you feel like you need to charge more in order to also stay with the developers and then ensure that they are pixel perfect, then you can ask the clients for more money. But then it's supposed to be like an asynchronous work. Like as you design, they get to develop, and then you get to see that your design is what's pushed live on production. So yeah, it just depends on you. If you feel like you need to charge for that, it's up to you.
All right. Okay, I think we can take up one last question, and I think this comes from a background where you are into mentorship and helping people kickstart their career. So, is there anything known as a teaching designer? Uh, he asked that, can I kickstart my career as a design instructor instead?
Can you kickstart? I mean, it's like asking if um I don't know, a child can become a teacher before even getting to school. Like before you can say you want to teach someone, it means you have to have like some knowledge about what you're teaching. So except if you are coming to it based on maybe you have some skills before, maybe you are coming from, I don't know, another tech field, then you can say, oh, you can mentor because of your existing knowledge. But if you want to become an instructor, a teacher in the product design space, and you've not done anything within the product design field before, you've not done any client projects, you've not had these conversations, you've not felt the pressure that comes with meeting expectations and all of that, then you cannot know how to have this conversation. You cannot relate properly with who you're mentoring, and it's just won't work. You can't ask a child to teach something that he doesn't know. You can't ask someone to say something that he doesn't know, because I think teaching comes from experience basically. So yeah, you have to have that experience coming from somewhere.
I think to add to that, I think design being such a practical field where there's very less theory involved, if not a lot, and a lot of practice, a lot of experience is needed. I think it can be very difficult to become a design instructor before having the necessary exposure.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I agree with you. Design is just one of those fields that clients and your employees are able to actually see what you are doing. It's not like say coding or programming that really nobody, like your boss doesn't care how beautiful your code is looking and all of that. So because of that's the nature of our field, you definitely need to have experience as to what works. Like you have to take into consideration, there's something we call accessibility, there's something we call usability. So what are some of the certain colors that you can use that would look different for a particular demographics, or that would look different? Like these are things that is only through experience can you be able to understand how it works, and then you can mentor or teach others basically. So yeah.
Yeah. All right then. I think that's it for today. I mean, there were a lot of there were a few questions. I think some of them were left, but I think it was great to have you, Raymond. It was a
Absolutely.
much needed insight to many of these young designers that are here today, and many more that will be watching the session soon. So thanks a lot for that. And any of those who tuned in late, or any of the ones who missed out the session, don't worry about that. We will have this session live on YouTube very soon, where you can watch it again. And yeah, as Raymond mentioned, he is always available on LinkedIn and other platforms as well. So you can simply connect with him, and you can reach out to us at ProApp as well, and we would be more than happy to help you out. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks a lot for giving out your time on a Saturday evening here in India. I don't know where you guys are from. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. See you in the next weekend, and yeah, have a great weekend ahead.
Yeah. Thanks guys for joining, and thank you so much for having me. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Cheers.
You too, Raymond. Bye bye.